welcome back to story time. It is spooky month and I'm so excited because nothing has an age restriction this month. No extreme horror. So we have some recovery time from Kevin Sweeney and Rick Feel and, reading from the Sex Offenders Act 2003. Because these things are, the things in their stories, if you were to do them in real life, would be really, really fucking illegal. So, right, I am Dani Brown, the Queen of Filth, although I prefer being called Queenie because I'm just not a Queen of Filth, I'm just Queenie. So, right, welcome to Spooky Month and Story Time. I am so excited because I've actually read this story. It was quite a few years ago, so I don't know if I could pronounce everything. And it's by Em Dehaney. I hope I said that right. Well, it won't be as bad as M. Christian's story from way back in August that I royally fucked up because I can pronounce everything. Like I've gone into that on my website, so there's no reason to go into it now. Now it's called The Rape of Ivy House, and it is just such a brilliant story. And not only do we have this, we have like one of my favorite books ever from Matthew Cash, so we'll be reading that next week. But right, I've got these as Word files, so they're on my Kindle app, so just give me a moment to fire it up. There we are. So The Rape of Ivy House was first published in Sparks and Electric Anthology. And I've got a story in there, and it has like these walking, talking cacti with like some semi-intelligence, like rudimentary intelligence. And it was republished in M's collection, 10-Minute Warning. So, right, these are really good stories. Now, you may not know who M is because, she's just been laying low like since the pandemic. So, and I think we're gonna see something very, very, very exciting from her sometime soon-ish. Hopefully, so you've heard of her first on my page. Same thing with Amanda M. Lyons. I think we can expect some really big things from her. So, right, here we go. Oh, and by the way, before we get too much into this, there will hopefully be an entire month just dedicated to extreme horror. Aiming for January. I'm not quite sure. I want to speak to a few authors. We can't have Kevin Sweeney on every time, even though, he's probably one of my favorite extreme ones, but maybe we can get some of the other extreme authors to lend us their stories. So, right, let's get to this. Something nice, something pleasant for Halloween. The Rape of Ivy House. Mr. Gumpoth, are you there? Anita Sparrowhawk rapped her knuckles on the door, dusting her fingers with splinters of ancient paint. I'm from the council. You've been awarded a grant, Mr. Gumpoth. It's part of our clean green energy drive. We are modernizing nominated houses in the local area. Bring you into the 21st century, eh? This one's not even made it to the 20th century yet, she thought to herself as she stepped back and stared up. Thickets of ivy completely obscured the upstairs windows. Not that anyone would be able to see through them. The single-pane sashes were thick with grime and framed in rotten wood. The house was built in 1875, as testified by the stone plaque above the door, which sat in the middle of the square brick frontage with 2 windows either side at the top and bottom. It was just like a child's drawing of a cottage, if that drawing had been crumpled up and left in the bottom of a bin for 140 years. I've got a few leaflets here explaining everything. I'll pop them through the letterbox. It's very exciting and it won't cost you a penny. Anita paused, certain she saw a twitch of yellowed net curtain. That always gets them, title bugger. I bet he's got 50 grand in out-of-date banknotes stuffed under his mattress. I will be back on Monday with the workmen so we can get started. Yes, it's all very exciting. I don't want no electricity. The old man, it's spelled electricity, so it's hard to say, but it's quite cool. The older man shouted through the crack in the door. You can't fight progress, Mr. Gumpoth. This is all for your benefit. And I told you, I don't want no trickery. Now sling your old book. He slammed the door and a large branch of ivy dislodged, showering Anita with dusty spores. If you could just let us inside, she sputtered, brushing dead leaves out of her hair, then we can assess what needs to be done. She turned to two workmen who were eyeing the house with hesitation. If he won't let us in, we'll just have to find another way. She hoisted her handbag defiantly over her shoulder and fought her way through the overgrown front garden. Sat at his kitchen table, he could hear her rustling and bustling, trying to find another door. Good luck with that, he thought. The back door hadn't been opened since the war. His memory got hazy when he tried to remember which one. The kettle on the coal range started to whistle. Stan Gumpeth hoisted himself out of his chair and shuffled over, taking the threadbare linen from the front of the stove to protect his hand. As he was pouring water into his well-seasoned teapot, some would say dirty, he would disagree, Stan heard a muffled shit from the rear of the cottage, and he chuckled to himself, that'll be the coal bunker. Anita Sparrowhawk rubbed her bruised hip and leaned back in her fully adjustable lumbar-supporting economic office chair. She had a migraine coming, and when she closed her eyes, the black and white zigzag patterns of the edge of her vision danced and jerked. Pinching the bridge of her nose, she shouted across the open plan office. Anyone got any ideas how to get a stubborn old git out of his house long enough so we can get in and do the necessary? Has he got family? Someone called back. No, he was married once. She died. Perfect. Stan Gumpeth turned up the wick of his handheld oil lamp and stared into the eyes of the only woman he ever loved, his Mary, his golden morning, his pretty petal. He didn't come up to see her as often as he used to. He found it hard to get around now his knees were shot. His joints screamed in pain. His legs were bent. But today he climbed those stairs. He needed to see her, to talk to her like he used to. I'm keeping my promise, Petal. She didn't answer. She never answered. Her mouth was a thin gray slash. They're trying to get in, but I won't let them. It's just us. Here, Petal, we don't need no one else. Silence. And we don't need no electric trickery, right? The flame inside the lamp flickered, causing a shadow to jump over Mary's cheeks. That was all Stan needed. She heard him. She knew he was keeping his promise. The promise he had made before her light snuffed out forever. The following week, Anita Sparrowhawk trotted up the path to Ivy House using a lever arch folder like a machete, slashing away at the overgrown grass and weeds. The bruising from her collision with the coal shed had faded, but her indignant need to get this man out of his house had not. Why won't these silly old fools just let me do what's best for them? Mr. Gumpeth, I really wish you would open the door. I just want to talk. No harm in a little chat. She was not taking no for an answer today and continued to bang her fist on the door. Her wide-brimmed summer hat had gathered some strange looks from the neighbors, but it now protected her from the shower of dead leaves and wasp carcasses that fell as she hammered on the wood. Eventually, the door shuddered open, and a pair of eyes magnified behind thick glasses peered out. You again? I thought I told you. And I told you, Mr. Gumpeth, this is for your own good. Clearly, these people, they don't understand consent. And we wonder why there's a rape culture in this country. Two thick-necked thugs in white uniforms appeared from behind her and barged their way into the house, almost pushing Stan to the floor. A muscular arm scooped him up, and two hands gripped his shoulders. He attempted to twist out of their hold, but the hands clamped down so hard he thought his collarbone might snap. Don't try to fight, Mr. Gumpeth. You'll only make it worse. I have a court order here allowing me to enter your home and assess your health and well-being. She brandished a piece of paper in front of his face. It could have been a shopping list for all he knew. These two gentlemen are fully qualified carers. They will sit with you while I take a tour of the premises and complete a 21-point checklist of health and safety requirements before workmen can move in. Anita took a curiously glance around the dim kitchen. Of course, you won't be able to live here while the renovations are being completed. But this is my house. It always has been my house. I was born here and I'll die here. The bouncer in ill-fitting whites, who held Stan in his chair, glared down at him. The message was clear. That can be arranged. Now, don't be silly, Mr. Gumpeth. Just think of it as a nice holiday. I've got a brochure here. You'll be staying at the Pleasant Rest Care Home. Peasants Rest. That's where they send poor folk to die. You go in there, you'll never come out again. Stan tried to stand and follow Anita, who was now squeezing her buttocks past a pile of newspaper and into the dark hallway. A hand the size of a bunch of bananas pushed him back down. You'll stay there, Gramps, if you know what's good for you. He doesn't know what's good for him, thought Anita, as she felt her way through the gloom. That's the problem. Her fingers brushed against the door and reached down for the handle. This would be the room known as the parlor, used by the Victorian residents of Ivy House for entertaining and high tea. The stiffness of the door in the frame suggested it had not been visited for some time. She gave it a shove, and a gust of stale air puffed out. The room was in black, with only a slit of light coming from the edge of the thickly curtained window. Anita took 4 paces across the room and ripped the drapes open in a flurry of dust. She coughed, her eyes tight shut, tears streaming down her cheeks. When the wheezing and sputtering subsided, she opened her eyes, expecting to see a room crammed full of worthless trash. Instead, she was staring into the eyes of a young child. She fell back, colliding with a dresser, causing the china within to rattle. She clutched her hand to her chest, her heart thudding hard against her fist. A life-size portrait of a golden-haired boy hung above a fireplace black with decades of soot. A teary-eyed cherub, his lips were thick and pouty as if he had just been scolded. Anita rubbed grit from her own watering eyes and looked around the room. It was filled with portraits of the same sad, strange child. They were hung on faded William Morris wallpaper and propped up against walls. Small canvases were stacked on shelves, and a series of cameos in silhouette were lined up on a mantel, inch thick with gray ash. Peering closer at the 3 oval frames, Anita saw only one was of the boy. The other 2 were a man and a woman, a mother and father, parents and child, the eternal triangle. Commotion in the hallway caused Anita to turn just as one side of the triangle came bursting through the door. "You get out of here. This ain't for you, so get out." Stan snatched up an ancient I can't pronounce that, cloth from the table in the corner and tried to cover up the biggest of the portraits, but his efforts were cut off by a solid fist to his jaw. "Don't do that, you animal. You'll kill him," Anita yelled as the old man's eyes rolled back in his head and he crumpled to the floor with a thud and a puff of dust. The last thing he saw was a blue-eyed boy that never was. He always came to Stan in dreams, but the older he got, the harder he found it to sleep. The punch had knocked him out cold, and for that he was grateful. She was there, too, looking as beautiful as the day he met her, before she became a living ghost. It started with the painting. Mary was such a talented artist. She used to paint portraits of their friends just for fun. She never took any money. "Painting is my pastime," she used to say, "not my profession." Stan would ask her, "What are you passing the time till, Petal?" And she would always reply, "Till I become a mother." But the time passed, and still she painted. Soon the friends stopped coming to visit. They had families of their own. Friends went off to war. Friends died. Friends came back with pieces missing. Some of those pieces were obvious in their absence. Others not so much. And still she painted. She painted Stan, she painted herself, but most of all, she painted him. The perfect golden-haired angel who never cried, never spat out his milk, never broke his toys, never kicked his mother, never woke in the night. The perfect child who never existed. Not at first, anyways. The 2 workmen, Darren and Terry, took up residence that very afternoon. Now Stan was out of the way. They could get to clearing the years of accumulated shit out of this dump and make it habitable for human life again. Thick insulation boards to cover up the original walls, loft flagging, a telephone line and Wi-Fi, rip out the fireplaces and replace them with eco-friendly false log burners, and of course fully wiring the house up to the mains. Electric lights, electric heating, electric oven, microwave, dishwasher, and fridge freezer. "Lucky old bastard," Terry said as they filled the newly delivered skip with junk. "I wish someone would come to my house and give me a load of free stuff." The kitchen was easy. Everything had to go. Floors were ripped up, holes smashed in walls, ceilings yanked down. The rape of Ivory House had begun. When they got to the parlor, the face of the flax-haired boy shone down upon them. Without knowing if the painting were worth anything or not, Darren moved them out of the room and piled them unceremoniously at the bottom of the stairs. Battery-operated clip lamps were soon attached to the woodworm-ridden banisters and around the top of the door frames. The corners of the room were now shadowed in dark relief to the harsh artificial light. Spiders scuttled under skirting boards, and mice cowered in tiny gaps in the walls. Darren shone a torch upstairs, but thought better of venturing up there. The risers were covered in threadbare carpet, and the wood underneath was probably rotten. Plus, he had heard stories about this house. Stories that got passed around the village when he was a kid, embellished each time so that the truth was lost long ago. All he knew was he didn't want to be the first one to find out what was waiting at the top of those stairs. Stan Gumpeth lay with starchy sheets over his head, not moving, barely breathing. If he stayed motionless long enough, one of two things was bound to happen. Either she would bugger off and leave him in peace, or she would think he had finally carked it and set off some bloody alarm, sending every nurse and his dog running into the room. It's no use pretending I'm not here, Mr. Gumpeth. The sooner you sign these papers, the sooner you can get back to your home. That'll be nice, won't it? Anita Sparrowhawk's voice was as sweet as a Diet Coconut enema and just as unpleasant. She was sick of his games, sick of his stubbornness, sick of the sheer bloody-minded pointlessness of his objections. She had decided weeks ago that he was just being obstructive for the sake of it. There could be no other explanation. The renovations to his house were not only free, but the solar panels would save him money on his future electricity bills and might even make him some money, allowing him to sell energy back to the national grid. You'd think the tight-fisted old grunion would be grateful, but no. Each time she argued with him, he came back with the same old line, "I don't want no electricity." So in the end, she lied. Mr. Gumpeth, she laid a hand on top of the bed covers where she had imagined his shoulder would be. Stan, the council has listened to your concerns and have agreed that wiring the house up to mains electricity will no longer form part of the planned eco upgrade. They're going to put a wind-powered generator instead. She heard a soft rustle on their sheet. I've got him. Yes, they are going to install a small wind turbine on your roof. You won't even be able to see it, but it will be enough to power the appliances that we are putting in. Appliances that will make your life easier, Stan. All of this will make your life better for you, I promise. A tuft of white hair emerged at the top of the bed, followed by the thick black rim of Stan's glasses. But it won't be electricity, right? Electricity, right? We won't be hooked up to nothing. It will be just the wind making my appliances work. Of course, now sign here. There's love. You'll be back in home in no time. She thought back to the promise he made. The promise Mary begged him to make with her dying breath. He told me, Stan, she had croaked in his ear. He told me not to let them hook us up to electric lights. He said, Mother, you mustn't. He remembered cutting her off, even as sick as she was, angry that she was keeping up with this stupid charade. There ain't no one to call you mother. There is no boy. There never was. The guilt he had at shouting her down, of yelling at his dying wife in her final hours, never left him. But he had long since had enough of hearing about the boy, had enough of looking at his face in those paintings, had enough of feeling the child brush past him when he was in bed at night, sending prickles over his skin and freezing the very breath in his throat. Promise me, she hissed through gritted teeth, speckled with blood. Promise him, promise your son that you will never get the electricity. I promise, Petal, I promise. Work on Ivy House increased in pace. The council had an allocated fund per nominated house, but the quicker and cheaper they could get the job done, the more of the money they could funnel back into the counting coffers. Although the workmen were on a day rate, they didn't realize their foreman had signed a contract meaning they would only get paid if the work was completed on time. For every day over the deadline, they would have money deducted. So the time had come for work to begin upstairs. You know what they say about this house? Darren shouted up at Terry, who was clipping lamps at the top of the stairs. I know what I say about this house, Terry yelled back down. I'm sick of the sight of it. The sooner we get done, the better. I want to get paid. They say the old boy who lives here, Terry interrupted. He ain't dead yet. He flicked a switch, flooding the landing with light. Darren peered up the stairs, his face pale. When I was a kid, they used to say he kept his dead wife up there. Bullshit, Terry laughed. Now get your arse up here and bring that law flagging. Darren started to heave a large roll of insulation up the stairs with a grunt, pausing on each step. We used to hear him up there talking to her in the summer when the windows were open. Step. It used to be a dare who could get closest to the house. Step. My mate Trev climbed up on that old coal shed round the back once. Step. I watched him pull himself up to a windowsill. He was always a strong one, Trev. He pulled himself up just enough to see in. Step. He saw her, Terry. He saw the wife. I've never seen anyone so scared in my life. He screamed and dropped down on the coal bunker, twisted his bloody ankle, but he didn't care. He just kept saying he saw her. The dead wife, Terry. She's here. Terry leaned down to take the lagging from his younger and more gullible workmate. He was having you on, Daz. There is no dead wife. Now stop being a pillock. I'll bring up the tool bags and you find the loft hatch. Alone on the landing, the light should have been a comfort to Darren, but instead it threw sinister shapes and crafted giant shadow cobwebs. Oh, excuse me, let's just have a little drink break. Sorry, and I won't be editing that out because I'm lazy. Alone on the landing, the light should have been a comfort to Darren, but instead it threw sinister shapes and created giant shadow cobwebs. He looked up, hoping he would see the small square door cut in the ceiling above him. But no, he would have to go into the bedrooms and check. He waited for Terry to come back up, but could hear he was now deep in conversation on the phone. Picking up one of the clip lamps, Darren peered into the nearest room. A pale death mask shone back at him. A woman long dead, her skin gray and peeling. He yelped and dropped the lamp on his foot. What are you squealing about, you big fanny? Terry had arrived at the top of the stairs to see Darren cowering in the corner. Dead wife in there. She's in there. Darren pointed a shaking finger towards the bedroom where he had seen the ghost of Mary Gumpeth. Terry pushed the door open and shook his head in laughter. A half-finished portrait of a woman in dried-up oils stared accusingly out at them both. Turn around, will you, Daz? I can't work with her looking at me. The day Stan Gumpeth returned to Ivy House, nothing much looked different from the outside. He squinted up at the eaves and chimney to see any sign of the windmill. But that Sparrowhawk woman did say it would be discreet. Once inside, however, Stan didn't recognize the rooms he had lived in his whole life. Gone were the cool, gently worn flagstone floors, covered over with springy oak laminate. Gone were the blackened glass oil lamps, replaced with energy-saving light bulbs. Gone was the coal-fired range that his own mother used to heat his bathwater when he was a small child, splashing in the tin tub in front of the fire. All his memories, all the physical landmarks of his life in Ivy House were gone. The walls had been painted magnolia in a splash-dash manner that left splatters on the door frames and floors. He could see the dotted and dabbed plasterboard underneath, where the walls had come down to make room for the cables. Cables, as Stan Gumpeth had been assured, were not hooked up to the national grid. He stared at the new microwave. It stared back expressionless. A blank-faced robot, a futuristic intruder in his home. He wanted a brew, but the pristine white electric kettle looked too delicate for his gnarled old hands. Tired in the way only a nearly 90-year-old man could be, he wanted to be back in his own bed after the hard institutional slab he had been sleeping on at Pleasant Rest. He trudged through to the hallway, reaching for the oil lamp that wasn't there anymore. He stood at the foot of the stairs and flicked the light switch. The bulb at the top instantly illuminated the shady corners of Ivy House with a ping. Maybe this electric thing won't be so bad after all. Electrical current flowed through the newly fitted consumer unit into the maze of cables that now circulated the house like a network of nerves. Anita Sparrowhawk had lied. A white lie. No harm could come of telling some old codger a fib. She slept happily in her bed, her conscience clear as flames licked out from underneath inside the metal box in Stan Gumpeth's basement. The unit had been installed in a rush. A single screw had not been correctly fastened, causing faulty connections inside the distributor box. The fire quickly spread to a pile of old papers that had been chucked into the basement during the renovation. Landmark news stories from as far back as the 1930s went up like dry tinder and burned a path all the way up the cellar stairs to the ground floor. The plastic underlay between the original floor and the laminate quickly melted, and the newly painted doors began to bubble and warp in the heat. "Father, Father, wake up!" The boy's voice came to him in his dream. He even felt the familiar tug at his arm in the moment between sleeping and waking. "You ain't real," Stan Gumpeth said sternly inside his head. "You ain't real, so leave me alone." Smoke soon tickled its way under his bedroom door. The fumes filled Stan's sleeping lungs, and he was dead before the flames ripped through the top floor, leaving nothing but a blackened shell. When the firemen combed through the burned wreckage of Ivy House, the only thing untouched by the fire was a portrait of a handsome young couple and their smiling, golden-haired son. So, right, that is all done. Now, that's a really good story, really perfect for Halloween, I guess, ready for spooky season. Right, I will see you next week. Oh, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Hit subscribe. Yay! Hit subscribe. Subscribe.